ಕೂಡ ನಾನು ಹೇಳಕ್ಕೆ
ಅಷ್ಟೇ 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 ಇದ್ದಲೆ ಅಂತ ನೀವು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ವಾಯ್ಸ್ ಹೈಯರ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಇರಲಿ, ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡಿ.
Namaskar to all of you. Respected Director NAC, Professor S.C. Sharma ji, respected Professor Srikanta Swami ji, Reverend Teaching Fraternity and my dear colleagues. On behalf of the NAC family and on my personal behalf, I welcome each one of you for this 9th Upanyasa Malika. NAC believes that the quality education is the primary responsibility of higher education institutions, and NAC is trying to inculcate the quality culture in the higher education institutions as an external accreditation agency to lead them towards excellence through its assessment and accreditation process. NAC has adopted internationally accepted assessment and accreditation process which involves self-evaluation followed by external evaluation. I think by this time, the accredited HAIs have understood the importance of self-evaluation. The higher education institution, which understands the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats through self-evaluation, can plan and implement the strategies to reach excellence by strengthening its strengths and by overcoming its weaknesses using the opportunities. The academic and administrative audit will also help the institution to have their plan for optimum utilization of available resources and also mobilizing the resources required for future developments. With this idea, NAC has planned today's Upanyasa on academic and administrative audit and SWOT analysis. Today we will be listening to distinguished teacher educator Dr. Srikanta Swami, who will be delivering Upanyasa on this. He has worked in teacher education field for more than 30 years and he is a good researcher. He was professor in RV Teacher Education College, Bangalore and director research in Christ University, Bangalore. He is currently senior academic consultant with NAC in research analysis wing, contributing to a lot of publications of NAC. The person behind this Upanyasa Malika is our beloved director, Professor S.C. Sharma. He has taken several proactive steps to enhance quality of higher education even during the pandemic time. NAC has organized several webinars on assessment and accreditation process and best practices and national and international webinars on other quality aspects with an intention to reach to all the higher education institutions in India and guiding them in the quality path under the able leadership of our director. NAC would like to reach to the remotest higher education institution through our programs. Our director is an expert in several areas, from being an accomplished practiced vocalist to being an active scientist in the field of engineering and nanotechnology. On behalf of NAC family and my personal behalf, I once again welcome you all to this program. I am sure this program will provide most valuable inputs to HAIs in its journey towards excellence. Now I invite our Honorable Director to share his idea through his address. Director sir, please.
Namaskar. Again, it's such a nice thing to meet all of you in this virtual mode. I am grateful to Professor Srikanta Swami for organizing this lecture series 9 as Upanyasa Malika. Today we will be talking about importance of academic and administrative audit A&A in higher education institutions. In fact, these are some of the 4-5 points which I would like to mentioned quality check is very important in any of the higher education to meet excellence or standard of education. Quality in higher education depends both on academic as well as governance, that is administrative process. Audit in higher education appears to be a very new concept, a innovative concept that adds to quality check. And in today's lecture series, I am going to highlight on various important aspects of academic audit, A&A process, AAA processes in higher education. Academic and administrative audit are very essential for excellence in higher education, as all of you know. Since its review, the quality assurance process of higher education institutions, these are interrelated concepts. Well, if academics are good, administrative audit also should be good. Well, in 21st century, we have witnessed rapid changes in all walks of life. Considering these changes, respective governments in various countries have proposed various methods and measures to enhance quality of education at higher colleges, university level. Whatsoever is the name, but these are all attempts in academic and administrative audit. In fact, we have so many subjects: teacher education, yoga education, specialized manuals for different subjects, and we have a medical manual, etc., etc. But there, both, if you see the whole pattern with the metrics, key indicators, etc., it depicts the overall administrative and academic aspect of it, and then if we just follow the quality enhancement of the AQR certificate that report that you submit every year, and then at the end of 5th year you fill up the SSR, thereby the institution itself will get a lot of satisfaction that we have gone into good academic and administrative audit. But whereas in the state of Gujarat, there is Knowledge Consortium of Gujarat that is really good, and of course the other states are also now venturing into this. And the third aspect is academic audit. Now, what do we mean by academic? It's a subjective term. It is not like mathematics or a hypothesis that is stuck. And in fact, defining academic audit by eminent educationalist Professor B.L. Gupta, it states that it is a systematic and scientific process of designing, implementing, monitoring and reviewing the quality. Then what is administrative audit? Administrative audit is method of assessing the efficiency and effectiveness of the operating systems, of the operating procedures and policies, decision making authorities, functionaries, strategies, process, feedback, control, etc. Just like in the universities, we have the academic council and syndicate, where all the academic activity and administrative things will be put before the syndicate or the academic council, and we listen to them and we act. They are the guiding bodies. Likewise, this audit is a very important concept. Now, what do we achieve by this? To confirm that the arrangements for quality assurance are fit for purpose and conform to the institution's role and mission. To provide assurance that the standards of higher education at degree level and above align with expectations. To ensure that students have access to appropriate learning opportunities through taught provisions, private study and supported learning. And then to promote and enhance high quality teaching and learning processes. So highest level of students' achievement, and you can list a lot of things there. And objectives of AAA is nothing but the existing system and assess the strengths and weaknesses. It's like a SWOT analysis of the departments and administrative units, and to suggest the methods for improvement and overcoming the weaknesses. And then to identify the issues in the existing administrative mechanisms, and to identify opportunities for academic reforms, administrative reforms, and examination reforms, and to suggest methods for continuous improvement of quality and suggested by accrediting agencies. Now, the sixth point is AAA and benchmarking. This benchmarking is a very nice concept. Academic standards set by particular institutions are called as the benchmark of the institutions. You know, when we in colloquial term, when we talk things shine by contrast, it was A++ and what is B++, you compare what are the good points here and what are the points that has to be improved, and like this, you know, you can go backward in reverse engineering and have a good audit review and improve. And the auditors review how an institution designs, monitors, evaluates academic programs and degrees, how an institution assesses, evaluates and improves teaching learning, and how an institution takes account of the views of external stakeholders in improving. Academic audit collects evidences and processes by which an institution makes such assessment of the quality of teaching or student learning. Administrative audit can be defined as a process of evaluating the efficiency and the effectiveness of the administrative processes. Approach towards AAA. Well, this is a very important thing. You see, world-class universities or institutions of eminence always have adopt AAA for quality improvement. It could be done internally, internal quality assurance cell. Externally, it can be done by universities for its colleges or by a peer team. So Gujarat has developed a model of AAA for the state of Gujarat, which is worth emulating, and some HEIs undertake AAA exercises on annual basis. However, many HEIs prefer to do this exercise once in 3 years or 5 years. Of course, it's an internal exercise. And let me now conclude, because Professor Shrikant Swamiji will be giving a detailed account of academic and administrative audit. Academic and administrative audit gives a standard system based on parameters for quality education. Quality enhancement is defined in terms of institutional policies, procedures and activities that are designed to promote the learning experiences and enrichment of the curriculum. The approach to enhancement will involve an institutional assessment of strength and weaknesses. It reflects the particular mission and the strategy priorities of institution, where enhancement is seen in terms of a strategy for driving change and promoting student achievements and capability. That is most important. Without students' achievement and capability, there is nothing. And extending the experience and aspirations of students to participate increasingly in global community. In fact, we have written a book, and Professor Shrikant Swamiji has edited, on quality management system in higher education. And I have taken some points from this book, where I am also one of the authors in the book. And it's highly gratifying to be before you in this virtual mode, and we would like to continue this Upanyasa Malika further. And I am grateful to my colleague and who has initiated this program, Professor Shrikant Swami, an eminent educationalist. And I am grateful to all my colleagues in NAC, and particularly Mr. Suresh Babu and Balaji, who have been working in this studio and helping me out. Thank you. Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Sharma ji. Indeed, it was a very brief but of presentation wherein you have motivated the higher education institutions to know the importance of AAA process in higher education, and I am going to continue the same thing with little more emphasis upon the once again from programs, and they used to initiate many people for this program, and thereby they used to enrich their knowledge with respect to the A&A process. Once again, welcome. As I mentioned, I am going to start my presentation. Suresh Babu, you can go to the slide show. Now the first one, I am going to just mention 1 or 2 points regarding the need for the A&A process in higher education. Okay, 1 minute. Yes. Higher education institutions should do quality check in order to assure quality and also to enhance quality. Since it is a quality organization, very frequently we are going to highlight more upon the quality parameters, quality control, quality assurance, and quality enhancement. There are various techniques to do quality check. By doing quality check, higher education institutions will get a lot of confidence, and through these techniques they will come to know where they are, what are their strong points, what are their weak points. Institutional quality gap analysis technique is one such technique. Then the second one is called SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunity, and challenges. The next one is called academic and administrative audit, or AAA process. And similar to that, we are also having one more technique known as the PERT, program evaluation and review technique. By using these techniques, it is possible for education institutions to have some kind of quality check by means of which they can make sincere effort in order to improve and show the quality. Now, institutional quality gap analysis is a very nice technique, and it will encourage all of you to know. And here in this technique, your main and simple task is to ask as many questions as possible pertaining to the education, whatever you are imparting to your students. Like some general questions you can ask, and that will make you to have some kind of idea how you are doing, in which direction you are going, in which direction you are progressing. Like some general questions like, what are the highlights of this institution as far as its strengths are considered? Therefore, you can ask a question, what are the strengths of this organization? Usually, whenever a new hotel comes, people who wanted to interview the proprietor or the owner of that hotel, they used to ask this question, sir, so many hotels are there nearby. Your hotel has come, what is the specialty of your hotel? And usually, the owner has to prepare to explain to us in what way this hotel is special. In the same way, the higher education institution, we expect you to answer this question regarding what are your strong points. What would you consider some of its weakness or areas of concern? What do you perceive as opportunities for this institution? What opportunity is there to grow? If it is a college, do you have opportunities by means of which you can enhance and you can enrich and you can come out with the variety of programs so that your college can be elevated to a level of university? What do you see some challenges or threats or bottlenecks which the institution would face in the process of development? Like that, you can ask some general questions. Then regarding the leadership that is there in your institution, regarding that also you can ask some questions like, is there effective leadership in the organization? because as is the leader, so will be the functioning of the organization. Thereby, the role of the leader is highlighted. As we have been highlighting about the inspirational leaders, transformational leaders, transactional leaders, in that way, every education institution should have a good leader. But you know the condition, sometimes because of seniority, somebody is elevated to the post of a leader. But he may be called as a principal or a senior professor, but the leadership quality he may not be able to exhibit. Therefore, there is a need to train the person one who has occupied the highest position. There is a need to train him to become an effective leader. There are many programs by means of which it is possible to equip and empower him to become a good leader. Some of them are born leaders and some of them are made leaders, in my opinion. Some of them are gifted by birth. If they are having those qualities, it's really fine. If some of them are not, therefore my sincere suggestion would be they have to undergo some kind of training programs in the name of leadership training qualities or developing the leadership behaviors. Thereby they can acquire and then they can perform better. Then what are its future directions? This institution has started, let us say, 5 years back. After 5 years, where you wanted to be, how you wanted to be, you must have started with the undergraduate programs. Would you like to go for PG programs? Or if you have already started the PG programs, would you go for doctoral programs? Like that, what are its future directions? I think one has to think about it. Is there effective communication right through the different layers of the organization? Is there any provision for sustainability in leadership functions? Because sustainability is equally important. If a leader is doing well 1 month and second month if he is going to be in the sleep mode, it is of no use. Sustainability is very important. Consistency is very important. Is there participative management? What evidences do you see in the assigning responsibilities to various members of the institution? Are the faculty and students adequately motivated? Now friends, this is very, very important. In higher education institutions, if there are 100 faculty members, we have to make sure that all 100 should participate in one activity or the other. Need not be with the same speed, need not be with the same level of efficiency or effectiveness, but we expect them to participate so that if everyone is participating, means they can own their responsibility, they can become part and parcel of that organization and they can contribute better. Therefore, I think these are the questions which are very much pertinent when we are talking about the leadership quality. Then similarly, resources are very important. We refer to various kinds of resources, human resources, financial resources, material resources. Therefore, some more questions you can ask to know where do you stand. Does the institution has enough physical resources, classrooms, laboratories, games and recreational facilities? What about the human resources? Faculty numbers, then non-teaching staff, because everyone is important for an organization. What about the student strength? If there is a college or a university having lot of physical facilities, if the student strength is less, do you think that it is doing well? Or do you think that it is, if you do the cost benefit analysis, is it worthwhile to run that university with so much of facilities for only few number of students? Then staff development programs, student development programs besides syllabus. Apart from that, what other programs do you conduct for your students apart from whatever the activities which have been described and discussed in the syllabus? Is the institution financially viable? What are the sources of finances? How well the finances are managed? Is there a financial audit? What are the audit remarks? I think these things one should be very much careful, because all these things gives some kind of feedback for the head of the institutions, feedback for the management, so that they will come to know their weak points and thereby they can move forward by means of which they can utilize their strong points. What is the learning resources provided to the students in terms of library? Library is very important. The number of books, type of books in the library, number of journals and the type of journals in the library. Then library timings. There are very good libraries, but many times students will complain, sir, we have got a very nice library, but when do we go and refer? 10:30 the library opens, by then we will be inside the class. 5 o'clock we wanted to go, by 5:30 the library will be closed. Now friends, you are aware, there are very good national libraries which works 24/7. There are libraries which works almost for 24 hours a day. Therefore, how do you plan, how do you provide the facilities to your students? Number of books are there, number of journals are there. How do you accommodate the students to get the benefit of all this? You have to ask questions. How are computers and information technology used in the present day teaching and learning? Are there adequate facilities, internet access? Now friends, as you know, one is having the facilities, then affordness to have the facilities. The other one is, are we exploiting and utilizing the facilities to the optimum level? Optimum utilization is very, very, very important. There are computer labs. Students may use those labs only for 1 or 2 hours per day. The remaining hours, what will happen? Lot of investment is there. Therefore, when we are talking about the resources, resources are very essential. Managing the resources are equally important. And apart from that, the resources should be used to the optimum level. Now, when it comes to the programs, program options available to the students, what are the programs options which are available to the students? What type of programs you are having? Emerging areas included in the curriculum. When we talk about the curriculum enrichment, day to day we come across in the newspapers, in the journals and magazines, lot of issues, burning issues. Lot of thrust areas are there. Do you think that your curriculum touches upon these aspects here and there? Or do you think that the curriculum, your curriculum experts have incorporated some of the interdisciplinary courses for students? There's one way looking at something needed, interdisciplinary. The whole world is talking about interdisciplinary. Multidisciplinary should not differentiate discipline with the other. Integration is already this. Therefore, we have to see provision for student. The original action the student need, the employment grants to the appropriate. Therefore, we have which curriculum we are having. Lot of value-added courses we are having. But do you think that all these things help the students to enrich their knowledge, equip their knowledge, update their knowledge, and made them to acquire this knowledge in order to encash and utilize in getting the jobs? Because placement is equally important. What all the exercise we do here, academic exercise, somewhere this should lead to the job. You should make the students to get the job. Choice-based grade system with elective options. Do you have that? Are you following it? Lot of advantages are there. Academic flexibility provided in the curriculum offerings. Provision for academic credit transfer from one institute to another. Supposing a student wants to move from your college to some other college, do you have that provision in your university? And number two, do you have provision to transfer his credits, whatever he has earned in this college, to some other college without allowing him to repeat the same thing once again? I think these are all some kind of innovative practices which is going on, and every institution should aware about this and make provision so that the students should get the benefit. Supplementary enrichment courses offered to the students. Supplementary enrichment courses which are very much essential. Some certificate courses you can include. Job-oriented courses you can include. Skill-oriented courses you can include. And you can make the students to get the certificates after going through those courses. Now the friends, next one is about the process aspect also. You can do the gap analysis by listing out some questions like, does the institution exercise any strategic planning? How do they derive with respect to the vision, mission statement and goals? I think you are also aware the NAC intervention made higher education institutions to know the importance of identifying and also mentioning their vision, mission and goals in their SSRs, whatever that they are going to prepare. We expect them to do that. Earlier, most of the institutions did not know the importance of making the vision statement or mission statements and also writing in terms of the core values which are to be followed by higher education institutions. It was not there. What are the mechanisms for effective implementation of the plans? This is also equally important. What type of mechanism do you follow in order to implement this? Does the institution seek feedback from students, teaching faculty, alumni and employer? I think this is equally important because feedback helps you to know where you are, to what extent you have succeeded, and what are the expectations of students, expectations of parents, expectations of teachers, and expectations of the employer. I think you have to keep this in mind and you have to prepare your students accordingly so that the benefit will be there and your name automatically goes higher and higher. What are the best practices adopted by the institution in the various functions? What best practices? 20 years old, 30 years old, you must have encountered yourselves with some issues and problems pertaining to teachers or students. How did you overcome? And how in the process of overcoming, how can you say that you have come out with a practice which can be good or best? That best practice is good to that in your website, these not to not cater to the students in the manner of earlier students from the United States, students from abroad. And questions from abroad, from other countries, some problems because their needs are diversified. Therefore, how do you address to these diversified needs? Have you ever tried in that particular process? I think these are some of the questions you have to ask frequently, and getting answer immediately is one thing, but in the process of asking questions, gradually getting the answers, I think that is most important when compared to saying that we are trying, we are not able to achieve the expected one. I think that may not be true. Then how is the teaching? How is the teaching learning process made experiential? Whatever we teach theoretically in the classrooms, it should help the students to do very well. Any kind of theory you teach in the name of physics, chemistry, mathematics, or social science, sociology, history, geography, it should have some kind of impact in its lifestyle. Otherwise, whatever we teach, he thinks that it is for the sake of getting a certificate, getting a degree, may not be of any help in his lifestyle. I think that is wrong. A beautiful link is there between whatever we teach and whatever we see in the society. It is there. Some of us may fail to explain to the students the importance of teaching a particular subject. It has got maybe immediate impact on the society, or it may be having the long range impact. We have to make the students to know about it, which is equally important. Then process of ensuring teacher quality, because the more weightage is given to teaching and learning process. More weightage is given because good quality education depends upon good quality teachers, good quality teaching and good quality students. Therefore, you have to ascertain that what about the teacher's quality? Have you appointed good teachers? Then, how many of them are really doing well in your institution? How many of them have got the good teaching skills? How many of them lack the good teaching skills? Have you taken note of all these aspects? Have you conducted some training program? Did you send your faculty members for other institutions in order to make them to equip with the teaching skills or the pedagogy related skills so that they can do better? I think they are all very nice, asking questions. Sometimes it looks little different, but questions, it penetrates to our mind, it makes us to think, it makes us to find answer. Then performance outcome is equally important. Effective curriculum design, is it going on? Faculty and student involvement in research. Always, even the UGC is also insisting on good teaching is must in every higher education institution. And number two, research is equally important, publication is equally important, and participation in extension activity is equally important. So these four aspects are consistently and constantly highlighted and insisted by the UGC. Therefore, research compared to other countries, I have spoken about these research universities, the importance of establishing research universities I have discussed earlier. Therefore, faculty and students, both of them should involve in the research process. Research means some of us may think that producing the MPhil students, producing a more number of PhD students. No. In the name of making the students to involve in research, you are developing research bent of mind, research skills, problem solving attitude, critical thinking skills. All these things will help them to look at a problem from a different angle. They are going to find the solution to these problems. Then consultancy by the faculty members. In our NAC manual we have got, especially for university faculty, we ask them, do you have consultancy facilities in your university? Do your faculty members go as consultants to other places like industries or maybe other field related work, or will they go for the multinational companies? Very important. And through consultancy, you are making your updated knowledge and skills visible to the outside world, outside your university. And at the same time, you are helping the other people also to utilize your latest knowledge, abilities and skills, and they also will come up. Therefore, it is a win-win situation. Do we have that? Better to ask such questions. Contribution to society through extension activities. I think whatever you practice here, with the outside your institution, a society is there. There are certain percentage of people are illiterate. There are certain percentage of people do not know anything about your virus, not known very technically about the impact of this virus like the COVID and other things. But how far you can educate them? In terms of ecology, you can educate them. Environment, you can educate them. Then avoiding a lot of pollutions, you can educate them. Extension activities are equally important. Graduates with social responsibilities and citizenship roles. Some of the higher education institutions do conduct the camps, like NSS camps, you are very familiar. Citizenship training camps are also quite common. I think these are all some of the important programs you can organize at your college level or at your institution level. Thereby you can involve your students and acquire various kinds of social values, dignity of labor, many things that they can learn. Because unless you ask this question, how can you think of an action? Therefore, the question makes you to think the need, and ultimately it makes you to find the solution also. Graduates with social responsibility, I mentioned, access and equity to diverse sections of the student population. Good student progression is important, we have discussed about it. Good student welfare measures. Always when students are coming to your university or a college, you have to look after them well. You have to nurture them well. Because once when they leave their family, they'll be spending more time with you, more time with the institution, more time with the colleges. Are we not supposed to be accountable in maintaining them to be comfortable in our college campus, in our university campus? I think many good institutions, they are doing like that. You have to look after their welfare. Then effective governance system is equally important. And ultimately, what is the brand name you have created for your own institution? 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old. In other countries, 100 or 150, 200 years old institutions, they maintain the same quality. Consistency is there. Whereas here, some institutions in the beginning, they do well. The first cycle, they do well. Second cycle also. Third cycle, they go down. Fourth cycle, still. Any reasons may be there, that's fine. But apart from that, there should be a proper linear growth. Gradually, they have to move on. Thereby, the institution will get a brand name. What type of brand name that you are having? Can you say your institution is very well known in the field of sports, brand name in the field of sports, brand name in the name of organizing cultural activities, brand name in going for majority of the students going for the jobs, brand name where your students are highly paid when they are appointed because they have got more skills and knowledge compared to other students. I think you have to do. This is one important technique, friends, I mentioned so far. This is the first part of my talk where I mentioned doing what we call that gap analysis. By asking a lot of questions pertaining to the different areas of your academic process. Ask questions. Then try to find out what are the limitations, where you got answers, where you didn't get, where you did not get. Try to find the answers. In the process of that, work out some strategic plan. Now, friends, this is the first part. Now, I hope you are all with me. You are just listening as well as watching my PPT. Now, the second part is equally important. It is in continuation of the first part. And the NAC also insists that every institution should do this exercise known as the SWAC exercise, or they have to follow the technique known as the SWAC analysis technique. Most institutions, those who have done this, they are doing very well. Therefore, some of you are doing, you know what is the SWAC, but here and there are few institutions, maybe some government or institutions which are located in the rural side, tribal side. Most of them may not be very much familiar. And therefore, I thought of selecting this area as the second broader area in my today's talk and to share some of the information so that you'll be more comfortable. And after listening to my talk, you can do the SWAC analysis about your own institution and you can progress well. Now, SWAC analysis, it is also called a strength, weakness, opportunities. All the four words are there. Therefore, doing SWAC analysis means touching upon the four factors here. In fact, this was developed in the year 1960 to examine an organization's internal strength on one hand and weakness as well as opportunities and threats from the external environment. Institution is there and institution is in the midst of the society. Therefore, internally it may be having some kind of strong points, some kind of opportunities. But outside the institution, it may be having some kind of threats. Outside it may be having some challenges also it may be having, keeping the external factor. Therefore, you have to take account of both internal as well as external factors. SWAC analysis is the most important tool for audit and analysis of the overall strategic position of an organization. Its main purpose is to identify the strategies that will create a model for aligning an organization's resources and capabilities to the requirements of the environment in which the organization operates. Friends, here one point I would like to highlight upon. Some people are so lucky to establish an institution in a very nice environment, conducive environment. Some people may not be able to do. They must have selected an external environment. They must have selected an environment which is very far away from the city. They must have got free land. They wanted to establish higher education institutions there. I think therefore some of them have got so lucky to establish institutions in a central place. Some of them may not be having. But by doing this kind of exercise, it is possible that they also can improve, overcome some of their difficulties and come along with the others. SWOT is the foundation of evaluating the internal potentials and limitations and the probable likes, opportunities and challenges from the external environment. It reviews all the positive and negative factors inside and outside the organization that affect the success of the organization. In fact, it is a systematic study of the environment in which the organization operates, very important. Therefore, there is an environment. In the midst of that, we have got an organization. If you do the SWOT analysis, you will get a better understanding about that institution which is operating there. It helps in forecasting, predicting the changing trends, and also helps in including them in the decision-making process of the organization. SWOT is utilized to mirror the HEA strategic plan methodology. So what is the methodology that you would like to do? In fact, before the SWOT, institution may be here. After doing the SWOT, then it can think of some strategic plan by means of which it can grow further and it can improve upon. That's why we say do the SWOT analysis. Even in the kitchen, an experienced lady also will do the SWOT analysis. If there is a program or a function that is going to happen after a month, she can do the SWOT analysis. Like a function where 50 people will come, what are the strengths with respect to accommodating 50 people or 20 people? What are the weak points in the kitchen, not able to provide food for facilities to other people? Everywhere this is there, but we are not able to do it in a very scientific manner, systematic manner. If we do it scientific and systematic manner, solutions are available. Now the next one, you can see in the diagram what are the components of the SWOT analysis. As I said, 4 important components, like as I said, strength will be there, weakness will be having, opportunities will be having, and the challenges. Therefore, the strengths and also the opportunities, more or less, they are maybe within your control. You know them better because you are inside the organization. Weaknesses outside people can identify. Challenges outside people can identify, but you also can visualize them. Therefore, the 4 components are very important. And if you take it in a graphical form, like in say first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, fourth quadrant, and you can think of moving from one quadrant to the other quadrant. For example, if you are having more challenges, how do you convert your challenges into an opportunity? You can move from here to here. We can move from here to here. Or if you are having more weakness, how can you convert weakness into your strong points or weakness into an opportunity? But this is a source I have taken from the quality management system in higher education, which is recently, this book has been published by NAAC. The same diagram with little more in an extended form, like you can scan the environmental scan, you can do it. Thereby you can identify internal factor and external factor. Internal factor, if you analyze, you come across strength and weakness. If you analyze external factors, you can come across opportunities and challenges. I think they are all interconnected. You cannot simply differentiate one from that or the other. They are interconnected. But for the sake of convenience, we must have grouped them strength and weakness under internal and opportunities and challenges as external. But in some places, it can be, you can interchange and you can look at them in the same way. Now, what are the strengths? Strengths are the qualities that can also be, that enables us to accomplish. Now, here I am going to give you the simple meaning of each one. Strength means what? Strengths are the qualities that enable us to accomplish. That is about our organization's mission. These are the basis on which continued and sustained activities can be done. Strengths can be either tangible or intangible. Then these are what you are well versed in or what you have expertise in the traits and qualities, like your employees possess individually And as a team, and the distinct feature that gives the organizations its consistency. Some people will say, sir, individually our faculty members are good, but collectively they are not good. I think you have to find a solution. Why individually if they are good, why they are not good collectively? What is wrong? Are we not able to bring them closer? Are we not able to bring some kind of amalgamation among with some kind of adhesive force to put them together? I think you have to analyze. Strengths are beneficial aspects of the organization. If the strengths are more, if you do the SQUAC analysis, that means you can definitely grow because your strengths are more. I can give you some examples here only so that you can understand better. One organization speaks like this about its strength. It says, we have got excellent infrastructural and other facilities. Infrastructure and ICT facilities we are having. They say it is their strength. Conducive environment for the teaching learning process we are having. Very good classrooms we are having, very good teachers we are having, good students we are having. Another strong point. Democratic management process we are having. Our management is highly democratic, not autocratic. Full freedom is given. Everyone is allowed to speak. Everyone is treated equally. That is our strength. No partiality. Irrespective of caste, creed, color, we treat them everybody. Once when they enter our the university campus or the college campus, we allow them to forget about the religion, caste, etc. We treat them as the faculty members of this esteemed and bona fide organization. They say that is a strength. Then they say, embracing multiple intelligence and diverse learning styles we encourage. That is our strength. Enhancing curriculum with an extensive in extracurricular activities, our strength. Teachers who are facilitators rather than instructors. That is our strength. Our teachers look after the students well, treat them well. Even after the class hour, they are going to teach them. Therefore, they are not like mechanical instructors coming and going, but they are dedicated faculty members. Emphasis on values that would serve as a moral compass and provide guidance in life. Therefore, these are all some of the strengths what they are highlighted. In the same way, when our NAC team goes for peer team goes for the visit, they also will do the SWOT analysis. They also will write down the strength and weaknesses. I refer to one report where they have mentioned like this. Strong point they have mentioned about an institution. Institute enjoys good legacy and reputation. Strong point that they have mentioned. Principles of this institution incorporated in moral and ethical educational institute. Therefore, this institution in which moral education is given priority, holistic education is given priority. College is a major center for girls' education. Faculty commands respect from the students. Therefore, no conflict between students and faculty. Good education with overall development of the student. Therefore, here is a college which believes in overall development of the students. I think like that, almost all the institutions, they are doing the SWOT analysis. They highlight about the strengths. Earlier, they did not know how to identify. I have given few examples. I think through this, it is possible. Okay. Now, the second point is about the weakness. What are the weak points? One should know the weak point also. Knowing only about the strong point is not good. We should know the weak points. By knowing the weak points, like many students used to say, sir, you are a good professor, you are a rank holder. They are all the strong points. But the weak point is, you do not know how to teach to all of us, sir. That is a weak point that many times the students will be saying. Therefore, you should know the weak points also. Sir, you know the content subject very well. Your mastery of the subject is very good. But when it comes to communicating to us, your language is not good, sir. Your communication is not very clear, sir. We are not able to follow you, sir. That is your weak points. I think students can do very good analysis about our own teaching. In my 45 years of teaching experience, I have come across all kinds of students. But some of my students have become my own teachers. I'm not exaggerating. Some of my students have become my own teachers. I learned many things from them because they showed me my weak points, which made me to correct myself and proceed in the positive side. without curbing them, without discouraging them. Very openly, I took their suggestions, I took their feedback, and I think I am doing well now. All these credits also goes to my students because they identify my weak points. Weakness is the limitation or the deficiency in resources, skills, and capabilities. They can be internal negative aspects that are under your control, and that you may plan to improve them. Therefore, no doubt they are negative, no doubt they are bringing it down, but if you can take account of all these things and try to work out in a positive direction, you can do better. Now the next point is about the opportunities. Opportunities are presented by the environment. Opportunities are very, very important. Every one of us, we come across many opportunities. That's why once when a professor was asked, what is the difference between a luck and an opportunity? He said, no, they are connected. Sir, tell me then what is luck? He defined in his own. Luck means whenever many opportunities passes in front of you many times, how quickly you grab, how quickly you encash the same thing, that speaks about your luck. Therefore, if you are having luck means many opportunities, everybody will come across opportunities, but many will observe the opportunities will follow one after the other, they move away. But a lucky person in the sense is one who looks up the opportunity, then he grabs, then he takes it and converts that opportunity and ultimately make use of it to get a good name. I think that is a luck. Therefore, I think traditional way of believing in luck is not good. Modern way is anything that comes to you, analyze quickly as possible, and if it is an opportunity, kindly take it. It should be careful and recognize the opportunities and utilize them whenever they arise. Opportunities may arise from market, competition, industry, government, technology. Government may announce all those who are willing to start a research center in their own universities or colleges. We are going to give a grant of, let us say, 10 lakhs, the government may announce, 20 lakhs it may announce. Therefore, encash. Sir, we are going to start, all of you can come together, join together, work out a plan, work out a scheme, so that automatically money will come. That's why opportunities may arise from market or competition or industry or government and other. I think Suresh Babu, opportunities may arise from market, competition, industry. I think one has to encash the same thing, which is very, very important. Mr. Habib, then what are the challenges? Challenges are major threats to the organization. Challenges are very, very common. Challenges are there everywhere. We have got challenges of different type, different kinds. Every organization has the challenges. Without challenges, an organization cannot exist at all. Therefore, your concern is to see how best you can convert the challenges into an action. Now, friends, I think you can start just analyzing like that, but you do come across many situations in which you can convert a challenge into an opportunity, and challenges should be brought down to the minimum level. Without that, it will be very, very difficult. I think one has to look into it. Now, I think there is some kind of disturbance. I just call. Hello. Yeah, hello, Suresh Babu. Hello. Sorry for the interruption. Suresh Babu, I think there is a display problem. You can kindly check. Friends, I think 1 minute. Sorry for the interruption. But however, I am having the PPT, I will just proceed. Therefore, challenges are very, very important. One has to plan for the challenges. How do you plan for the challenges is equally important. Now, challenges are a major threat, as I mentioned, which is very, very important. Then after doing this SWOT analysis, you should be able to see how you can connect the strength, weakness, and opportunities. You have to just plan how it can be connected. Sorry for the interruption. I can proceed. Now here, identify potential opportunities that are a good fit to the institutional strengths. Yeah, fine. Therefore, there are so many opportunities are there. List out those opportunities and then try to convert these opportunities into challenges, which are 1 minute. Sorry, I think I am just changing it. Okay. Therefore, identify potential opportunities, list out them one by one, and try to see that they are going to be your real institutional strengths. Like identify potential opportunities to overcome weakness to pursue opportunities. Like you may say, we have got huge land. Huge land is there. Therefore, huge land is there, but your revenue is very less. Therefore, how do you convert the huge land portion by means of which you can get revenue to your college, to your institution? I think there is a method. You can go for strategic planning, consult some people. They will give you a lot of ideas wherein this strong points of having a very big land, it will make you to proceed further to get revenue, and you can also run your institution with lot of facilities to your staff and students, and good quality education can also be provided. Then identify ways that the institutions can use its strength to reduce its vulnerability to external challenges. Lot of threats are there. Therefore, the strong points is, as I said, no, outside you have got only one college, and the next one is maybe another 3 kilometers away from your college, let us say, but many students are not coming. Why are they not coming? You have to analyze and you have to attract the students, and thereby your big land area, you can apply, request government, request philanthropist, they come forward, they contribute the money, build the classrooms, attract more students, it is possible. Establish a defensive plan to prevent the institution's weakness from making it highly susceptible to external challenges or the threats. Weakness means external people may say, here is a college, students are not disciplined, students, staff members teaching is bad. Like that, somewhere or the other, the institution's name is being spoiled. The message goes to the external environment about this organization, about this institution. Therefore, the weak points is your staff members are not doing well, weak point. Your performance of the students may be very low. Student progression may not be so good. I think they are all the weak points which communicates back to the environment, back to the community, back to the society. Therefore, you have to change, you have to convert it. In that way, SWOT analysis is really good. It is something like a mirror to know about your own organization and how to proceed with the SWOT analysis in case you have not done. Some points I have just mentioned here, you can look into it. Some steps also you can follow. Number one, establish the objectives. Number one, if you want to do the SWOT analysis, what are your objectives of doing the SWOT analysis? To know the strength, to know the weakness, to know the challenges and opportunities. Some objectives. The purpose of conducting the SWOT, it may be to know the SWOT analysis for 2 years, keeping the 2 years data if you wanted to do, 3 years data if you wanted to do, or if you wanted to do SWOT analysis regarding the science programs conducted in your organization, SWOT analysis regarding the co-curricular activities conducted, SWOT analysis regarding the research programs conducted. Like that, you can identify the objectives for that. Select contributors and form a team. You can also form a team. Allocate research and information gathering tools to the team members. Background preparation may also be carried out in 2 stages, like the exploratory and the detailed. Therefore, you can collect maybe a detailed information, or exploratory means wherever it is possible, you can go and you can collect it. Then in step number 4, create a workshop environment. Encourage an atmosphere for the free flow of information. Conduct a workshop, invite the people, ask them to tell about the strong points, ask them to tell about the weak points. Rather than 1 or 2 people saying, majority of the people can be invited and they can just share. We'll continue. Then list the strength weaknesses. In the workshop technique only you can ask the people to list out the strength, list out the weak points, opportunity, etc. Then the sixth point is very important. After listing, what will you do? Evaluate the listed ideas against objectives. With the list compiled, sort and group facts and ideas in relation to the objectives. Then lastly, carry the findings forward. Therefore, what do you conclude from that? Strengths are more, weaknesses are more, then the challenges are more. Like that, you draw some kind of conclusions so that these conclusions should lead to some kind of action plan for the future. In that way, SWOT analysis makes you to grow, makes your institutions to become visible. There are advantages and disadvantages. Quickly, let me glance about the advantages of doing the SWOT analysis. It is a source of information. You will come to know more about your own institution. It builds organization strength, then reverses its weaknesses, maximize its responses to opportunities, overcome organization's challenges. Any challenges you can overcome by doing this analysis. Helps in identifying core competencies of the organization, identifying objectives for strategic planning, review the past and present, and based on that, future planning can also be carried on. Friends, beautiful. So many advantages we are having. We have come across many people who have done this, got the benefit. So my request to all of you is, why, if you have done it, is fine. In case you have not done, why can't you do it? In case you do not know how to do it, make use of this information. There are other sources where information is available. Or invite some experts already who have done this SWOT analysis, invite them. They will train you and you can go ahead with that. Then one or two small limitations, of course, here I wanted to mention there. SWOT analysis is not free from limitations. Organizations might view circumstances as very simple and may be overlooked. Like in the process of doing the SWOT analysis, you may not be able to identify the difference between your strong points and opportunity. You may not differentiate. Or sometimes you may say something as an opportunity, but it need not be an opportunity. You may say that, sir, we have started the engineering college because we learned that there is a scarcity for the engineering seats. Therefore, we have started, you may say. Therefore, you may say we have got good land, good building, nice opportunity. And therefore, another 20, 30 years will come up, you may say. But within 5 years in the market, there can be some kind of change. New colleges may come next to your own organization, like some of the hotels will come, a lot of competitions. It may come. Therefore, you have visualized that within 20 years you may come up and you do wonderful things. But your neighbor has come within 5 years and he is doing very well. There were some small limitations will be there, because whenever you are doing the SWOT analysis, you may not be so much scientific in doing. There were some limitations may add, but don't worry, they are all the smaller limitations that may not affect your institutions to a greater extent. Now friends, so far I have explained in my second part of my talk, what is this SWOT analysis, why one has to do, what are the advantages, what are the limitations I have explained, and I have also insisted that every one of you should be familiar about this, because 1960 they started this technique. Even though it is popular, you proceed with it and get the benefit. The third and the last point, whatever I am going to cover today in today's talk, is academic and administrative audit. The audit concept was not very familiar to all of us. Earlier it was very familiar and many people used to do it. Earlier in the field of business it was very familiar. They were all doing audit. We are going to the auditors. Income, then expenditure. Auditor will calculate all those things. But now it has come to the institution, because audit is more rigorous. Audit is little more scientific. Audit gives a balanced view about both the aspects. Therefore, there is a need that every institution, when it goes for auditing, Pakka check will be there, Pakka data will be there, data checking will be there, data verification will be there. Therefore, whatever the conclusions we draw from auditing is authentic. Therefore, many people will say, better you go for audit. Now, here we use the word AAA. Professor Sharma ji also has mentioned, and he has given one or two simple definitions also for that. 1A stands for the academic audit, Other A stands for the administrative audit. Both we have to do. Academic and administrative audit are very essential for the excellence in higher education, since it review the quality assurance process of higher education institutions. These are interrelated concepts. Thus, in order to have a quality over in academic, there should be a strong administrative background. Therefore, academic aspect is important, administration aspect is important. Like they are the two sides of the same coin, they complement each other. One influences over the other, therefore both are very important. In the 21st century has witnessed rapid changes in all walks of life. Considering these changes, respective governments in the various countries have proposed various methods and measures to enhance the quality of education at higher level. Whatsoever is the name, but these are all attempts in academic and administrative audit, emphasizing upon this. In India, along with I think that our director also has mentioned the Gujarat, that model, that initiative that they have taken in order to do this, establishing this AAA unit, and through that getting a lot of benefit. Similarly, the another aspect that we have mentioned, center has assigned the responsibility to National Assessment Accreditation Council, like our NAC, whereas state government of Gujarat established a knowledge consortium in Gujarat. They have taken the lead in the name of this, and we have seen many benefits derived out of this kind of process. What is this academic audit? Already sir has mentioned, it is a systematic and scientific process of designing, implementing, monitoring and reviewing the quality of academic systems. Now friends, the four aspects you have to remember. The moment when I say auditing, it involves four aspects. Two dimensions. One is academic and one more is the administrative. The four aspects are: designing is important. You have to design the process of auditing. After designing, you have to implement that. Then you have to monitor that, and ultimately you have to review to find out the impact of that. Therefore, this scientific process of designing, implementing, monitoring and reviewing is called the academic process and administrative and academic process. What is administrative audit? A method of assessing the efficiency and effectiveness of the operating system of the administration. Therefore, administration is going on, and the administration should be efficient, number one. Administration should be effective. These two are equally important. I think they are supported to the academic aspect. If the admission process is very low, if revenue is not being generated, difficult to run the classes. That's why I said efficiency of the administration, effectiveness of the administration is equally important. The administrative audit would certainly make the functionaries to ascertain the strength and weakness of the operating system in general, and pin out the areas in particular, and to ascertain where the function is stagnated and affected, where special attention is required. Very important. Admission procedure. Do we want special attention? Is the admission, is it transparent or not transparent? If it is not transparent, what we have to do? Or how do we know whether it is transparent or not transparent? Auditing will help. Therefore, administration equally important in terms of efficiency and also effectiveness in terms of transparency also. Then here, some points are very important to know. Why we want this academic and auditing process in our higher education institutions. Number one, to confirm that the arrangements for quality assurance are fit for purposes and conform to the institution's role and mission. Therefore, we have to confirm the arrangements, whatever the college has made, university has made, we have to confirm that the arrangements are good and they are for the welfare of the students. We have to ascertain. Then to provide assurance that the standards of higher education align with expectations. Education and education experts, they expect the institution should be like this, teaching should be like that, research should be like that. How do we know whether they are all maintaining the same the standard or whatever that was set in? Auditing will help. To ensure that students have access to appropriate learning opportunities through taught provision, private study and supported learning. Therefore, an institution may put in their website that free coaching classes will be done. How do we know? Institutions may say free scholarships will be provided. How do we know? Institutions may say free accommodation for every year. Some 30 students will be given. How do we know? I think unless it's through auditing, we cannot ascertain. To promote and enhance high quality teaching and learning, to confirm that students are fully supported, to advance the highest possible levels of students, to encourage strategic developments that enriches the curriculum and enhances. I think all these things are important, and objectives are closely goes with whatever the points I have mentioned. They are all the objectives. What is the objective? Number one, to understand the existing system and assess. That is in terms of strength and weakness, we have to assess. Our purpose of doing academic and administrative audit is to understand the existing system. Second, what is the second objective of our ANDA? To identify the issues in the existing administrative mechanism. Are there any issues there in administration? Are there any problems with respect to teaching or learning? Are there any problems with respect to the appointment of teachers? Are there any problems with respect to the promotion of teachers? I think through auditing you can understand better. To evaluate the optimum utilization of financial and other resources. Friends, you also must be knowing this. Some of the organizations, they have got very good resources. They have mobilized the resources very effectively, but they are not able to spend them properly. There is no balanced way of spending the money. In some places they spend more luxuriously, in some places they do not. For student scholarship, they say money is not there, but spending for some other purpose, they have got a lot of money. I think auditors will object, and they do write remarks. Therefore, there is a need to the optimum utilization of the financial resources. I think through auditing we can find out. So to suggest the methods for continuous improvement of quality assessed by auditing agencies. First year how you have done, second year how you have done, third year how you have done. I think it is possible. Then through auditing we also can keep a benchmark how other organizations are doing, how others are managing their finances, how do they manage with the finances, how do they provide facilities for the green auditing, how do they provide facilities for the eco-friendly environment. Therefore, somewhere we can have the benchmark pertaining to some of these aspects, keeping how others are doing elsewhere, keeping those things as benchmark. Auditors will come and ask you, similar organization is doing that, why can't you do? In that way, the A&A process also helps you to set up a benchmark and proceed in the direction of achieving the same thing. And it highlights upon these three aspects, namely, how an institution designs, monitors and evaluates academic programs, how an institution assesses, evaluates and improves teaching learning, how an institution takes account of the views of external stakeholders, what external stakeholders are saying, what are their suggestions, how do they expect the institution to run. Like that, these are the three broader questions you can ask, and through this you can also find answer by going for administrative and academic auditing. Then academic audit collects evidences and process by which an institution makes such assessment of the quality of teaching or student learning. It traces the interaction between institutions' quality assurance policies and the activities of academic. Auditing people also will say, what about your quality standards? Then what about the accrediting agency's recommendations? Have they gone for first cycle? What are the things that they have suggested? How far you have implemented? Sometimes principal may say, we have implemented. Staff member says, we have not seen any kind of implementation. I think in my opinion, I have come across all those higher education institutions which are having regular academic and administrative auditing. They are doing very well because thereby certain loopholes will come to limelight, people will set in and things will go in the proper direction. There are various kinds of approaches we follow in our A&A approach. World-class universities or institutions of eminence always have adopted A&A for quality improvement they have used. And internal quality assurance cell, it has used this. Universities and colleges, they will be having a peer group which takes initiative in doing this auditing also. Like the different people follow different approaches by means of which auditing can be done. In some places, internal auditing will be done. In some places, external auditing will be done. Internal auditing means a committee will be set up at the institution or the college level, university level, and every year in a particular month they go, they do the auditing and give the feedback. External outside people will come, committee, like our NAC peer team visit, they come, external, they do it. So there are different approaches through which it is going on. And I have come across even government colleges, for your information, I have come across one government college in Bangalore. I am not highlighting that this is the only college which is doing. And they have, in collaboration with the NAC, they have organized a program and academic and administration audit, a benchmark for quality enhancement in higher education. Therefore, they have done it. One Chandrasekhar, he is the internal quality assurance cell, the coordinator. He has done wonderfully well, and they collected and articles. Anybody reads into this book will get an idea. There are plenty of books are available, wherein the institution, they themselves have put it on their website, how their institutional auditing has been done. Very wide, something like an open book that they have put it on the website. Kindly go through it and get the benefit, acquaint yourselves and proceed with that. Now friends, lastly another 5-10 minutes I'll just take. The when you wanted to go for this, you should have a structure for conducting the audit. Usually they follow this is only suggestive in nature, and this structure or format may vary from university to the college. Slight variation can be there. A chairperson should be there, a retired vice chancellor, or a senior academician, one who did lot of work there. He has got both theoretical as well as practical experience, can be a chairperson. A university nominee can be there. Academic experts of 2 or 3 or 4 can be there. Administration expert can be there. IQAC director can be there. Student representative, alumni representative. Like that, you can form a committee. Get approval for that committee, because tomorrow people should not question about the structure of the committee. Therefore, get some kind of approval from the concerned authority. Say that for another 10 years this committee will be there, another 5 years this committee will be there, or for this academic year this committee will be there. Define and proceed. And different types of sheets, data sheets, you can have it to use it for your auditing purpose. Format 1 can be an institutional profile. Therefore, you can have format 1, wherein you collect the name of the institution, email ID, etc., number of students, all those things you can collect. Format 2 about the 7 criteria of NAC, how they have done in the 7 criteria. Criteria 1, how they have done. Criteria 2, how they have done. Criteria 3, you can have another format for NAC 7 criteria. Format 3 can be academic advisory report. Therefore, last time academic advisors, when they have given the report now, that format will tell you, did you receive academic advisory report? What have they mentioned? What strong point that they have mentioned? Something like some information. Format 4 can be action taken report. All right, you said previous year the academic and administrative audit committee has come. They have audited. They have given a report. They have suggested certain things. Have you prepared any kind of action plan to fulfill all those things? They may ask you. That's called the action taken report. If you just produce the action report for this committee, I think they appreciate and it will be of a greater help. Then grade matrix, or for academic advisors and principals, you should be able to have a grade matrix. Ultimately, you can give them the grade in this auditing process. You have got an A grade, then you have got a B grade, C grade. You have got B grade because you have not fulfilled earlier whatever the audit report has given. You have not fulfilled, you have not taken any action. In that way, they can do it. Now, friends, different format. I've suggested few. You have got freedom to add one more format. Or if you are already come across familiar about some kind of formats established by some university or a college, if you are convinced, please proceed and take it up. And for government colleges, they have got a constant body which keeps on moving from college to college. That committee has been approved by the Department of Collegiate Education. Probably they must have given some kind of approval. Based upon that, government first grade colleges, government first grade colleges, they can have a separate committee which keeps on moving and give some kind of certification. You can. The formation, how do you format the committee? Rules and regulations for the committee, training the committee members regarding their role, what they have to do, preparing a calendar of events when they have to go, when they have to visit the organization, and then ultimately to conduct an exit meeting, make an institution to know about the report, how they have prepared, what all that they have seen, how many departments that they have visited, everything. Give a brief report which makes people to understand, and that is a nice way. And this acts like an eye opener for every higher education institutions to know its own strong points and weak points. And in some places, some principals, don't mistake me, they may be a little bit thick-skinned. They may not be able to implement it. But when the audit committee is coming and insisting, they are forced to do it. Therefore, I think many people, those who are moving from cycle 1 to cycle 2, cycle 2 to 3, they are doing well. Grades are also improving because one is the SWOT analysis support, otherwise called the gap analysis technique. And the third one, what I mentioned about this auditing. All these three, they are the real quality check which makes an institution to move in the path of progress. Now, friends, in conclusion, keep the background of your institution, acquaint with the A&A process and SWOT analysis, involve the experts who are very familiar about these procedures. Please remember, as I mentioned, a junior doctor should learn from a senior doctor. A junior advocate should learn from a senior advocate or a judge. In the same manner, we expect you also to take the help of senior people, and they have worked there, and they let them transfer their experiences to you, and you can grow. Train the IQAC unit in this process, very, very important. Every year, IQAC is supposed to submit a report known as the Annual Quality Assurance Report, and we expect them to give some kind of mentioning after going through this AIA process that, sir, we have gone through it, we have improved. Implement the suggestions and outcome of these processes you have to implement, and then ultimately you do the follow-up for the next cycle if you wanted to. Dear friends, this is what I wanted to just follow. I am sure with these three approaches of gap analysis technique, one thing, SWOT analysis number 2, and the third one I mentioned, the academic and administrative audit process which has come, and most of the organizations have adopted and they are doing very well, because education is a continuous process. Even the National Education Policy also insists that the quality should continuously improve, and it cannot happen in a magical manner. It will happen only based upon the scientific ground and scientific analysis. Therefore, I hope the three aspects, whatever I have completed in the name of quality check, will be of greater help to you. Therefore, my best wishes to all of you, and I request that all of you to take further and implement the same thing and get the benefit. Thank you very much. I stop at this stage. Thank you. Yeah. Now, Habib, I think if there are some questions, we would be very happy. Along with me, Dr. Sujata Shanbog, the advisor from NAC, she is also here with a lot of a rich experience. She is ready to answer the questions which are going to be raised by some of our friends. Questions, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Pushalakshmi here.
Yeah, Pushalakshmi, yes.
Dr. Lakshman Kumar Sudham, you may ask your question, sir.
Yes.
Dr. Lakshman Kumar.
Little loudly, Lakshman.
Dr. Lakshman Kumar.
Question. Next one.
Yes, sir. I'm not able to see any other participant raise their hand. I request the participants to kindly raise their hand if they have any question.
Yeah, some of them are in tomorrow's holidays mood.
Yeah.
In a humorous way. Okay.
Dr. Mohinder Kaur. Dr. Mohinder
Yes.
Kaur, you may ask your question.
Yes, sir, I want to know your views regarding green audit. That what type of committee should be formed in this?
Yeah, I think once again in our NAC manual, you are familiar, maybe keeping that, you are asking that question. Therefore, green audit, that structure, some of the universities already have established and they have done it. Those who have got the A++ grade. One method, you try to contact them, those who have gone and get the direct experience, number one. Or number two, there is no hard and fast rule. All those who have involved, maybe in the Department of Horticulture, a member can be there.
Yeah.
One who has worked there. And the Department of Environmental Pollution Control Board, in some committees, you also can be included. Like that, in the green audit, if you wanted to have a green campus in your place, horticulture department can play a very important role. Forest department people also can play a very important role in sharing and also giving some kind of support. You constitute a committee involving some of these people who have already experienced, therefore they know what exactly. Then apart from that, the people who have gone there as assessors, they also will be having an idea about this green audit, and so that they in the committee they will suggest these are our expectations. People who are from the other department, like I think social forestry or from the horticulture, they will say we will cooperate, we will support you, we will help you. In that way, you can form a committee by means of which you can enhance and have a green campus, number one. Stage one.
Botanist could be there, sir. Botanist.
Exactly, definitely. Zoology professors can be there, botany professors can be there. Form a committee in the initial so that they will suggest how to go about. Similarly, you can form a committee wherein they can ask them, sir, this is what we have done, come and audit whether we are in the right direction or not. I think that much I can tell you right now. Please contact one or two those who have already been established that, and we can proceed. Madam, anything?
Yeah, no.
Okay. Next question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Next one. Lakshman, is he able to?
Dr.
Lakshmi?
Gakul Chandra Saikia. You may ask a question.
Hello,
Yeah.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir,
Yes.
you are audible. Yes.
Sir, I am from Assam, from
Yeah,
SPB
okay.
Gulf.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I want to know one thing, that we have running only the BA programs in our college.
Okay.
In a particular programs, so we have so many courses. So many courses are there, 13 or 14 courses are there. That means this particular papers are there for under CBCS courses.
Okay.
Under courses. The thing is that we are asked to write about the outcomes of the courses as well as the outcome of the programs.
Okay.
With a particular objectives, we are teaching the particular courses.
Okay.
The fulfillment of these objectives for a particular courses this should be, I think, the outcome of the courses. So
Yes.
how can we evaluate this outcome of this particular course?
Do you want to answer, madam? Or? Yeah.
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Now, thank you. I think Assam, Guwahati, I visited long back. I can remember. I can visualize you that you are from that part. Then, to answer your question, you can refer to our manuals. Number one, university or college manual. In the glossary, we have mentioned about the program outcome, learning outcome. We have mentioned course outcome, course learning outcome. Like that, we have defined some of these terminologies. Number one, I want you to go through it. You, in the sense, along with your friends, have a better understanding about all these terminologies. And number two, even some of the engineering colleges syllabus, they have introduced and they have written the program learning outcome, course outcome, everything that they have written in their own curriculum. Therefore, if you refer to some curriculum where they have already written, that acts like a guide for you to prepare the coursework, learning outcome, and the course learning outcome for your own courses. I think, therefore, this is one suggestion I am giving. And number two, if you refer to any kind of syllabus of an autonomous college or a college which has got the A grade, invariably they have mentioned in the beginning the objectives of the syllabus. If you refer to the syllabus, it has got three parts. Part number one, objectives of preparing the syllabus. Second part is about the coursework in terms of unit 1, unit 2, unit 3. Last one is with respect to the theory and practical, any kind of assignment, I think should be discussed, and ending up with the references. Therefore, the objectives also will give you an idea about the subject. Therefore, the learning objectives are different, course outcome will be different. Course outcome means a candidate will be completing a course of 2 years or 3 years. What is that you are expecting? He will be able to. Like that, already people have written the program outcomes clearly, course outcome clearly. NAC also has given some examples for all these things. You can kindly refer. Take the help of few more experts, sir. It won't be very difficult. It is possible that though you have introduced the new courses, you can write it. In the beginning, you write it, involve the people, and gradually can structure it. It will be accepted by any kind of accrediting agencies. Therefore, it will not be a difficult exercise in my opinion. And the background for that would be, you kindly refer to Taxonomy of Educational Objectives by Benjamin Bloom. Benjamin Bloom has written a book on taxonomy of the classification of objectives. Under the cognitive domain, some aspects, whatever that they have given, will give you initially some strength, which gives you an idea how you can proceed in writing the learning outcome, course outcome. Course outcome, emphasis upon the course. Program outcome, emphasis upon the program which you are running for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. Then the subject outcome pertain to the subject whatever you are teaching. In that way, keeping the emphasis on that, they must have written. Kind of time factor, I may not go very much in detail. Thank you. Next one.
Dr. Nandakishore? Dr. Nandakishore, you may ask your question now.
Yes. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes.
Yes.
Sir, I am from Punjab. If
Okay.
I am an assessor also, so I
Okay.
want to, if the Punjab University does not allow to nominate a professor for academic and administrative audit, then can we arrange another principal who is also assessor for academic or administrative audit team?
Yeah, madam would like to answer. Yeah.
See, it is internal academic and administrative audit. Even the IQAC can do, or you can appoint even the external persons. The institution can decide on that.
Okay. And IQAC, institutional IQAC itself is competent
Yeah,
for that?
primarily, the IQAC can take up this job. Once you complete and improve upon, then you can identify external persons who have experience in administrative and academic. You can identify 2 or 3, and you can constitute the committee, and you can request them to audit your institution, academic and administrative audit. Always it is better, even the external experts audit your institution, because their perspective may be different.
Yeah.
You may be
Thank
looking at
you. And
yourself. Yeah.
thank you.
I think
Another question.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, please.
Another question. Is there any agency for energy audit?
Energy.
Yeah, there are external agencies who are doing the energy audit.
Yeah. Some people claim that we can do the energy audit because they have been trained, number one, and they are competent enough to do that also. I think you can find out.
Yeah,
There are people, as madam has said, there are people, you can invite them and then do it. Mostly those who are in the field of engineering background and those who have worked in the area of power related areas, they are all there. Like similarly with respect to environment, I said, pollution boards are there. Every state has got a board known as the state pollution control board. Like that, regarding the waste management and unrelated issues, also you can have a committee or an audit. There are people, and just you have to find out and then do it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
There is one question. What is the difference between strategic planning and perspective planning?
Yeah. Now, perspective planning, you keep the future in mind. When you go for a perspective planning, in the perspective planning, let us say after 5 years, I want my institution should be like this. In the area of ICT, I want my institution after 1 year, it will be like that, 2 years. In that way, keep the future in mind, you go for the perspective planning, in short. In strategic planning, you keep the issues or the problems wherever you are having pertaining to any one of the areas of our criteria. And then you try to work out the possible methods by means of which you can tackle and find solution. I think this is what we mean by strategic planning. Let us say you are under the student progression, you are not giving any kind of training for your students some 3 or 4 students are intending to appear for IAS examination. You are not giving any kind of coaching. If somebody asks you, sir, we have not trained, we do not know. Strategic planning would be identifying the people who have been trained, or identifying the organizations which are giving training for the IAS people, inviting them for guest lecture, or maybe for 1 or 2 structured programs, and thereby you can do it. Therefore, here is a strategy you have to adopt. A strategy means some kind of practical way of approaching so that it works very well for your organization. That much I can tell you right now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ah.
Sir, one more request is there. Can we take a question?
Yeah, one more. Yes.
Dr. Mahendra Swami, Mahadeva Swami, sorry.
Sir, I don't have any question actually. Let me thank. Actually, you have spoke very well and you have enlightened us, sir. Shrikant Swami, sir.
Thank you.
It is my. I am giving my sincere gratitude to you, sir.
Thank you.
Actually, from actually all the lectures I am actually involving in this.
Thank
Actually,
you.
all are very much helpful for us for NAC accreditation process and other things. And anyway, on behalf of my college, actually, I would like to extend my gratitude to you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I convey your thanks to our director and all our advisors.
Definitely, sir. For
and all officers,
all, sir.
actually.
For-
They
sir,
also have
sir.
motivated me to do like that. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Anyway,
Yes, sir, I think. Over. Pushalakshmi, I think.
Yes, sir. Over, sir.
Therefore, from my side, for formal vote of thanks will be there. From my side, I thank Dr. Sujata Madam, who is kind enough to spare her precious time to be here, welcoming both of us. Thank you, madam. Thank you. I thank all the participants for encouraging. And we have got 3 more under the lecture series. We request you to participate and get the benefit. Thank you. Now, over to Dr. Kamble.
Thank you. Good evening, one and all. Respected director, sir, today's speaker, participants, and advisors, and my dear colleagues. On this occasion, it gives me immense pleasure to propose vote of thanks of today's Upanyas Malika lecture series 9 on academic and administrative audit and SWOT, strength, weakness, opportunity, challenges analysis in the higher education as a quality indicator. First of all, I am very much thankful to Honorable Director Professor S.C. Sharma sir for his valuable support, encouragement and motivation to do this program. On behalf of NAC family, it is my pleasure to convey my heartfelt thanks to all the participants who attended this webinar from various parts of the country. I am very much thankful to Professor Shrikanta Swami, academic expert, NAC, for his excellent and wonderful presentation about AAA and SWOT analysis in higher education system. I am very much thankful to Dr. Sujata Shanbag Madam for welcome and introduce of this today's webinar. I am very much thankful to Dr. Amya Kumar Rath, advisor, and Mr. Samuel, system analyst, for host this webinar successfully. Finally, my sincere thanks goes to all the advisor, official staff, NAC ICT team for their motivation and support to make this program grand success. Thank you, one and all. Namaskar.
Thank you, Dr. Kamble.
Namaskar. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. We are closing the session.
Oh, yellow,